Hello and welcome back to Blue Flag Bandits, the series that takes in F1's lowest ranked teams since 2010. And we're in 2011, driving for Team Lotus, as you can see by the huge amount of green and yellow all around me. And we're at round number 4, the Turkish Grand Prix, the last scheduled in-season Turkish Grand Prix, save for the COVID hit season of 2020, where obviously the FIA was scrabbling for a calendar, but it's the last Turkish Grand Prix that we will drive. Turkey not featured in F1 2020, because obviously that shipped before everything. So we are going to be taking on the Istanbul Park circuit for the final and only second time in this series. And let's have a look at where we stand right now. P19. 0 points. We've had an 18th place in Australia, 15th at Malaysia, and a 19th in China after really just dodgy strategy on my part. Really just didn't pick the right tyres for a short stint prior to the rain. But we are by far and away the best of those new team cars, ahead of Timo Glock, Jerome D'Ambrosio in the Virgin Racing cars, Kantakane and Liuzzi in the HRTs, and Jarno Trulli there in the other Team Lotus car. But we did slip from 18th to 19th. Barrichello got a better result than we've had so far this season and jumped us. At the top end of the table, Mark Webber leads Felipe Massa by 10 points after wrestling that championship lead away from him in China. Obviously defending the 2010 crown that he took in our first season in F1 2010. Vettel there in third. Alonso, Button, Hamilton rounding out the top 6 as you'd expect. Then points for the likes of Petrov and Al-Khashwari, Perez in his debut season, Schumacher, Rosberg, Heidfeld in the Lotus, Boemi, the last of the point scorers, and then the rest of the guys in the season with 8 points. And then Red Bull leading the constructors ahead of Ferrari and McLaren, and then a massive gap to Lotus, Renault, who are just ahead of Toro Rosso and Mercedes, and Sauber, Force India, Williams, ourselves here in 10th, and then Marussia Virgin Racing and HRT completing the picture. And as I said, this is the second and final time we'll go to Istanbul Park in this series, which is a crying shame. We had a really good 2010 Turkish Grand Prix. And I say good in the grand scheme of things. We were running, I think, 4th for large portions in a mixed conditions event. We had a little slip back through mistakes, which is mostly what we made in 2010, thanks to just how the physics model is in that game in comparison, but still came home a fairly comfortable 7th in the end. There were certain points in this circuit that you really started seeing the issues the AI have at certain corners, particularly the infamous turn 8, the triple left-hand apex in the middle of the lap, and they really struggled there. Hopefully it'll be the same here. But as we saw in China, and to a point, to an extent, I guess, in Malaysia and Australia as well, the lack of curves in this car means that we really do struggle. And unlike last time, I'm not going to show you the weather report. I can tell you it's going to be cloudy. There's not going to be any rain, apparently, here at Istanbul. So we can't guarantee that we can get back on a level playing field. We took a season's best 11th in qualifying in China. Could have taken P10 if I'd got a lap right on the inters right at the end of the session, but didn't manage to. I fear we're going to come crashing back down to earth. But let's go and find out how this game handles Turkey. And while we do so, we'll talk about the real-life 2011 Turkish Grand Prix. Round 4 of the 2011 season saw the start of the European leg as the teams headed to Turkey for what would be the final Turkish Grand Prix at Istanbul Park until its appearance in the 2020 season. As it was the start of the European season, most teams brought upgrades, with Williams bringing handling upgrades, Virgin Racing bringing aero upgrades for just Glock's car, HRT adding more upgrades to their car after an update in China, and all the leading cars brought updates to try and close on Red Bull.
showing good pace for qualifying at the moment. Keep it up.
The first practice session was run in the wet, the first wet session of the season, which saw Alonso taking top spot ahead of both Mercedes cars, though many teams ran reduced programs to minimise their risk. Surprisingly though, Sebastian Vettel was pushing during the session, which led to the German clipping a curb at the exit of turn 8, much like you're seeing in the footage, and ended up in the barrier. Damage was substantial enough that he would not return to the track until the third and final practice session. The second session was held in drying conditions, which saw Button top the timesheets ahead of Rosberg and Hamilton, while the Williams of Pastor Maldonado replicated Vettel's earlier incident, hitting a damp patch at turn 8 and ending up in the barriers. The lack of running for Vettel didn't seem to affect him though. He led the final practice session by 1,000ths of a second from Michael Schumacher, while Webber took third ahead of Rosberg in both McLarens.
That lap put you at the top of the table.
Q1 was a familiar story for Team Lotus, Virgin Racing and HRT, who were all eliminated, but all outqualified Kamui Kobayashi because he'd had a mechanical fault before he could set a time. Despite having small opportunity to get out the first session, there was still half a second gap between Kovaly in 18th and Barrichello in 17th, demonstrating the almost insurmountable gap between those three new teams and the established midfield runners. The second part of qualifying saw no major shocks, save for Barrichello almost making Q3, after only just making it through the first session. It was, however, once again Sebastian Vettel at the top by the end, ahead of Webber and Rosberg, while Hamilton slotted in 4th. Alonso with 5th, with Button in 6th, while Massa could only manage 10th after abandoning his final run. Before the race began, Timo Glock experienced a gearbox issue that meant he couldn't start the race, so only 23 cars took the lights at the start. Vettel got away cleanly, while Rosberg took second, while Webber and Hamilton battled through turns 3 and 4 before Hamilton ran wide and dropped back.
Good job.
Battles began to erupt up and down the order. Schumacher collided with Petrov on just the second lap, causing the Mercedes to have to pit with damage. The McLarens were also fighting, much like they did in 2010, Button coming out on top after losing a place to Hamilton after a duel through the final few corners all the way back down to T1. The battles just continued. The Lotus Renault cars collided with each other near the pit entry, while Schumacher found himself at the centre of more incidents with Kobayashi and Adrian Suter. As the race progressed, Alonso and Webber found themselves in a gargantuan tussle for second. Webber coming out on top around the midpoint of the race, while Schumacher was once again at the centre of a three-car fight further down the order, with Massa, the Brazilian, coming out on top. It was who else but Sebastian Vettel who took another victory, leading him a Red Bull 1-2 with Webber in second, Alonso taking third. After records were broken in the last race in China, the most amount of finishes in the Grand Prix, this race broke some more, with over 80 pit stops recorded and the most overtakes in a race since 1983. And who says Formula 1 got less interesting as the years went on? How are we going to fare here? Well, the 2010 race was one of our better ones. It actually stopped a little bit of a slump that we were suffering. But this car, unlike the VR01, doesn't have the performance of the midfield, meaning there's going to be another uphill battle in qualifying. We have, however, been getting closer to Williams and Force India, the only other cars yet to score outside of the bottom three teams. So let's see if we can at least get one of them and aim for 18th place. In the garage then for qualifying at the
We know
Turkish
it's going to be
Grand
a
Prix.
struggle to get out of this session, but give it your best shot.
And very much like the last race, Andy saying it's going to be a struggle to get out of Q1, and I thoroughly believe him. Practice actually went okay for the most part. Had some R&D work to do. Started feeling more confident as the laps ran down. But it is going to be a bit of a battle, I think, to try and repeat the heroics of China. And I think that's going to be systematic this season. Every race, I think, is going to end up with us either out in Q1 or, depending on weather, maybe sneaking into Q2. But let's get out there. Let's get some laps on the board. Let's see what we can do, and let's have a look back at our fastest lap of the session. Here we are then, fastest lap of the first session, and right at the death. Been having a lot of problems with traffic during this session, but we've got a nice clear track in front of us and a fairly clean and tidy first couple of corners. Heading up now into this slightly more technical middle sector of the lap. Got to try and keep it nice and tight. We're a touch wide, but we're able to slingshot it back through there, take a little bit of curve and swing the car back across this double left-hander. Down towards the end of the first sector, you can see that we're still trying to chase down Sutil and Maldonado, but we're still a way off. But 2 tenths up on our own time, and then it's the lead towards the infamous turn 8. Trying to open DRS as often as possible, but you've got to be careful here. Just about getting off of it, and you could hear the car struggling as it almost lost the rear end. Trying to keep it as close to the track as we can, and then a touch wide on exit. But come down into 9-10. Cut a lot of the corner there, which probably would have been an invalidated lap in later iterations of the game. Through turn 11, we are only marginally up on our best time, but still some distance off Maldonado. Q1 elimination is looking likely as we get into the final couple of corners, hoping to really gain some time here. Seem to be able to just brake a little bit later, lap on lap, but it's really just waiting to get on the power here. Bounce across the curb and head across the line, and that is as good as it got.
You're where we predicted you would be. You're starting in 19th tomorrow.
There we are then, for the third of 4 races this season. We are out in Q1, 6 tenths of a second off Adrian Sutil and some 8 tenths off Pastor Maldonado. But we once again finish ahead of the 2 Virgin racing cars of D'Ambrosio and Glock, the HRT of Liuzzi, the other Team Lotus of Jarno Trulli, and the HRT of Narain Kartikeyan, who's 6.2 seconds off the pace at the back of the field. So we're going to be starting down the back once again here in Turkey. I say once again, as in once again this season we're starting down the back, not starting down the back as we did last season. Actually started in a fairly decent position here. But, you know, I actually feel pretty good going around Istanbul Park. So fingers crossed we can make it happen. Points probably a distance away, but let's cross over to the race and see what we can do at Istanbul. Welcome then to the garage for the Turkish Grand Prix. We start P19, which is kind of where you'd expect this little car to be. Let's take a look at the grid and then we'll have a little chat about what we're hoping for in this one. Sebastian Vettel took pole position ahead of Alonso, Massa, Webber, Hamilton, Button. That top 6 is probably going to be fairly static for most of this season, I feel. Then it was Rosberg, Schumacher, Petrov and Heidfeld, both Lotus cars ending up in the top 10. Then it was Perez, Kobayashi, Alguersuari, Di Resta, Buemi, Maldonado, Barrichello. And then that little clutch of us that drop out in Q1. Sutil being the established guy to drop out with myself in 19th, D'Ambrosio, Glock, Liuzzi, Trulli and Kartikeyan. Well, as I say, where you'd expect us to be, really, in qualifying, down near the back. I feel like this is going to be the story of quite a lot of this season, and we've got to take those opportunities, those outside opportunities, for points. Much like I think we might have had in China, especially if we just taken the right strategy call and then come in for the inters at the right time. I think we could have possibly nabbed a point. I don't think this is going to be one of those races. We could probably make up a fair few spots in the technical first sector if we get a good launch. Try and avoid contact, try and avoid dropping the rear on the curbs. It can happen here, happened a few times in practice. So fingers crossed that we can save that. But team objective, I think, has got to be the aim. P17, try and nab a couple of places from the established guys. Saw in qualifying that maybe people opening DRS too early through turn 8, maybe dropping it on the curbs, but a few yellow flags around turn 8. Even Mark Webber being one of them, I think. So there's a possibility the AI could trip themselves up. But let's see what we can do. Let's go to the grid for the 2011 Turkish Grand Prix. There's Vettel on pole. Red Bull, Ferrari, Ferrari, Red Bull top 4. There we are, 19th. Just in the background there, Jarno Trulli. You've got to aim to get a good start. 1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5. And away we go in Turkey. Let's get immediately into Rich Mix. And we're alongside Adrian Sutil. Nice big gap down the middle here, which I'm going to take. Keep it in Rich Mix for a minute. Nice and cleanly through the gap. Maldonado going backwards. There's De Resta, Perez and Heidfeld up ahead fighting. Maybe a little too cautious through there. But we'll go round the outside of Perez. Get caught up behind Rosberg. Oh, we've tipped Heidfeld. We've tipped Nick Heidfeld. Sorry, Nick. Kind of nudging back round. But we're in the top 10. Just behind Schumacher, and I think Kobayashi had a cracking start in the Sauber. Heidfeld has dropped out of the top 10. Obviously, because we pushed him. Both these cars sharing a name and an engine, but that Lotus is so much quicker. He's going to go up the inside. We'll try and stay with him. He got a little loose there. Look, it's a pack hunting me there into the final sector of the lap. The AI not massively quick through here. Which will give me just the smallest reprieve, but you know, I can try and defend all I want. Sort of top 18 cars, so much faster than us 6 at the back. Robust defence and just hoping we don't do something stupid like that. Run very wide through 7, Heidfeld's through. He's leaving the door open in turn 8. And not exactly disappearing away. Nico Rosberg right behind us as well though. No DRS on this lap. It would have been activation, or in detection should I say. The Mercedes should breeze past. We're just going to fall back. Rosberg decided he's not going to go for it though. Easy open door for Rosberg, and he decides to close it.
You can now use DRS.
Yeah, not exactly defending hard from Nico Rosberg, and he decides to just kind of back out the move. You might just about be able to see on the mini-map as well the gap between... Oh, that was wide. We locked up a little, but we managed to hold on to P11. You might be able to see on the mini-map the gap that's already forming between the end of the train behind me and the other Team Lotus car, the 2 HRTs and the Virgin Racing car. Might be somebody else back there as well, who knows, because there's seemingly a lot of cars going in very weird directions through the first few corners. Wouldn't be surprised if there was some contact somewhere. Rosberg, though, should easily have me now, and he'll get DRS. But we'll stay with the Mercedes. Just going to use his slipstream. We're in P10. Somebody already pitted. As Rosberg runs deep trying to defend, and we'll get back past him.
We're 7 places up on our predicted finish. Come on, keep going.
I was wondering why I was fighting for 10th. You might notice that Fernando Alonso is at the top of the timesheet. Sebastian Vettel is out of this race. I've just checked race director and he's gone. As I run wide and let Rosberg take P10, but I could just send it back on him there. I feel like that might become a bit of a favourite as we go through this race. But Vettel is out from pole. What happened to the Red Bull? There are no yellow flags, there's no safety car. A pretty heroic performance in Turkey in 2010 as Rosberg surely this time. Arias tries to follow him and I outbrake the pair of them. Pretty heroic performance in 2010.
Heidfeld has just entered the pits. He's in the pit lane right now.
Quick Nick Heidfeld heads in. Back ahead of the Lotus Renault. Into single digit positions now, into P9. I've been trying to say it was a fairly heroic performance in 2010 here. In mixed conditions, this would probably be even more so if we could hold on, but as we saw in Malaysia and in China, that we can make those positions up early as Rosberg once again doesn't go for the move. We can make those positions up, but holding on to them is a whole other ball game, especially during pit stop phases.
Webber's really going for it. He's just put up a new fastest lap.
Not the best line through there, but you get away with it. This should, I think, yep, lap 7, going to be our pit lap.
The pit crew are ready for you at the end of this lap. Pit this lap.
Also, looks to the outside of turn 1. Again, we hold him off. And we're actually next to Kobayashi. We're up to P8 now as people have gone in. Kobayashi on the primes. And that's the strategy. Still got a Mercedes behind us, this time Michael Schumacher, who will make that move, as you'd expect, but we're alongside him going into turn 8. Even with my ruined tyres, he cannot hold on around the outside. Should get past me now. And chooses not to. Looks like Rosberg is going to back out there.
The car ahead is holding you up. We need to pass. You're currently faster in sector 1.
Car ahead apparently holding me up. He is not. We should now have a bunch of cars in the pits.
Go.
We haven't been jumped in the pit stops either, and we remain.
Watch out for traffic as you rejoin the track.
We remain in the top 10. And Jarno Trulli, now behind us, could act
You're
as a
on the
nice
prime
little
tyres.
roadblock.
Only one stop to go.
There it is, swarming all over the back of me in the Sauber here. We're going to feature fairly heavily later on in this series. But for now, 2010, 2011, fairly solid lower midfield outfit. Maybe next season they'll start to try and spring the odd surprise. Things kind of spread a little bit, and I had a quick look through Race Director, and Rosberg has slipped to 15th in the pit stops. I mean, all of them behind me are currently a threat because they're so much faster. But they're not making the moves. I feel like moving on to the prime tyres was probably a good idea. More durable. Whereas this time we'll go through. The detection line's just there. I tried to hold off. We will chop across the Mexican. You can see Rosberg in the background making moves.
The fastest man on the track at the moment.
And we'll chop across the Sauber. Just enough racing room as we keep just ahead. It's been our weakest corner, that one. Like I said earlier, it's so short a distance to the next one that you can just kind of send it back on whoever gets by. May not look it, but I am absolutely pushing this Team Lotus car to its limit. You can see the offset between Team Lotus, Virgin Racing and HRT and the rest of the field. Legendary AI has really encapsulated that. Adisswanto goes past, he's got half a front wing. There has been some shenanigans behind Adisswanto. Look at him. Again, just making this T128 the widest car in the world. Perez moves back into 11th. Interesting to see when they all go in. Perez also missing half a front wing. Run wide again. Again though, Perez doesn't make a move all over the back. Williams, that's a Williams. It's past a Maldonado. 2010, Perez and Maldonado fought the GP2 title and Maldonado won it. Both graduated to Formula 1 at the same time and currently, as you can see there, sharing the same bit of tarmac. We're kind of blocking out Perez a little bit, just as we almost overcooked it.
Perez is slightly faster than you, he's catching you up.
Catching me up, he's never left. He's been there the entire time. Perez, of course, one of the few people in this field that will go on to race this place in 2020, in the real world anyway. The others being Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton. I think that's actually it. This grid. Tries to bully his way around the outside. Doesn't work.
Heidfeld should be coming in for tyres within the next 4 laps.
What's going on a 3? That's a really weird strategy if he is. Maldonado's now got past Perez and just cruises right up to the back and then sits there. Feeling a lot more agile now, fuel burning off. 15 of 29, so we're about half distance. Yeah, I'm just not really enjoying that sort of inside throw unless it's on a straight, so Maldonado does now go past. But even with DRS, as long as we've got it on VMAX, we can keep up with him. Break later into the final couple of corners. Oh,
You've picked up some marbles.
We've tapped him.
Reduce grip until you can wear them off. Stay on the racing line.
We've slipped out of the top 10 before the pit stops. That's frustrating. Trying to send it around the outside into turn 1 now. And we're staying with the Williams. Perez wants to come along for the ride here as well.
Ferrari are readying for a pit stop. One of their drivers is coming in.
On actual pace, we've managed to regain a position in the Team Lotus T128. I sound happy about it because I am. I absolutely am. Normally a car goes past and that's it, you're done. But we just managed to hold on to the back of that Williams. He's Perez now. He's going to try and make the move. Doesn't make it stick. I've once again run a little bit wide. Again, getting in the slipstream of the Sauber here. Up and under on Sergio Perez. Hold on to that 10th spot. At the moment, by our absolute fingernails, but we're doing it. And we'll defend from Perez. We'll go around the outside of us. Maldonado will take a look. We'll send it from space.
Up to a point scoring place.
They're all gone in. Right, they're all in.
The pit window is
Maybe
open.
we should have
Come in
gone.
this lap.
There's a little slippy, nearly lost it. They're all leaving the pits now. Or we've already left the pits, should I say. Oh no, they're going to pass me now.
You've taken some slight damage to the front wing. You should be okay to stay out.
Oh, Di Resta's just gone into me.
You're coming up to one of the Red Bulls.
Paul Di Resta's out. I'm going to get jumped by everybody who was in behind me.
You need to pit in this lap.
Really unfortunate. A warning for a cut, which is understandable.
Exit now.
Callow goes by, Sutil goes by.
There's some traffic at the pit exit. Watch out as you rejoin the track.
There is our leader, Fernando Alonso. Wait, Lewis Hamilton
You have no
70.
more scheduled pit stops, so look after your tyres. You need to let the car behind you pass. He's not racing you for position.
Oh, it was Fernando, it's actually Felipe Massa leading the way. I'm now being hunted down by a McLaren. How is Hamilton? No, he's not. D'Ambrosio's 17th. There's something weird going on behind me. I think even without the spin, I think he probably would have fallen down to about here anyway. The worst thing is I saw on the multifunction display that the lap that everybody else came in, it said if you pit now, you'll come out in 10th. It didn't trigger in my head.
Blue flag conditions. Let the car immediately behind through. You're not racing him.
There's Fernando Alonso. Ferrari 1-2 at the moment.
You're coming up on a group of slow-moving cars. Try to pass them quickly.
Jensen Button. I'll use the RS. .2 ahead of Trulli. Guys behind pitted. Button is going in. There he is. Engineer just said there's a group of slower moving cars there. Massa's also just gone in. There's somebody in the pits, and we've not gained a position, and yet we're the second, so...
Back up to speed. Wave blue conditions no longer apply.
Felipe Massa's been in. There we are. P16, 20 cars running. We've had 4 retirements. Vettel we knew about early doors. Liuzzi's HRT has given up on him. Lewis Hamilton is out in the McLaren, and obviously Paul Di Resta, who went out because we were in the process of having our own incident. We're way ahead of Jarno Trulli and the other team Lotus. We're a fair distance behind Rubens Barrichello. Barring any other retirements, I think this is going to be our finishing spot, which, much like Malaysia and China before, actually kind of disappointing in the context of things. Much like China here, I think it's been a strategy blunder on my part. I twigged when I read the multifunction display and it said, pit now, you come back out in P10. While I was P10, and I twigged that and gone in with everybody else. We'll be having a much more exciting tail end to this race. I'm trying to hold them off again, as Massa's going to lap me for a second time after his pit stop. nudge him through the corner because I can brake so much later through there. I believe to be Jensen Button. Said right at the start, it's those opportunities to take points. Try and take them, because while by round 4 in 2010 we still only had 1 point, thanks to that miraculous P10 on debut in Bahrain. When we arrived at Turkey in that season, which was a bit later in the calendar, but when we arrived at Istanbul Park on a bit of a bad run, we came here
you need to let the car behind you pass.
and we
He's
picked
not
up
racing you for
a
position.
really great result. Buttons are on the inside, there he goes. So it would have been nice to have had a nice bit of symmetry and picked up a fairly miraculous point here. Not to be, unfortunately. Doesn't really get a huge amount easier in terms of circuits where our weaknesses are maybe a little bit exposed as we head to Catalonia next. We've been lapped in every race so far this season. 4 rounds in, 4 times we've been lapped. We don't even think had half of that in 2010. It does mean this is now a 28 lap race, so we're only a few away from the end.
Blue flag conditions. Let the car immediately behind through. You're not racing him.
Through goes Petrov then to lap us. Actually doing pretty well there in 5th. But we will follow him round to begin our final lap of this Grand Prix. Another tale of what if, really. A couple of retirements have obviously
The car ahead is pulling
inflated
away
our
from you
position.
at a rate of around 2 seconds a lap.
In terms of being in 16th, thanks to retirements for the likes of De Resta, Hamilton, Liuzzi and Vettel, of all people. Probably also why Petrov's position is 5th. Best of the rest, with both Ferraris and the remaining McLaren and Red Bull cars ahead of him. But we spent a lot of time fighting in the top 10. And the end of this race might have also been
Keep pushing, he might make a
scrapped
mistake.
for that solitary point at the end of it, because much like China, made a bit of a strategy miscall, a bit of a misstep. Saw on the MFD it said 10th if you were to rejoin, pit and rejoin. Didn't take that because I was busy fighting with Perez as Alonso crosses the line for victory. I was fighting with Perez into this final section, and then noticed they'd all disappeared into the pits behind me. The very next lap I was due in. Ruined rear tyres, caught curb, spammed the car, tapped the wall, took De Resta with me. I think they probably would have all jumped me, but if I'd gone in at the same time, I'd come out ahead of them. But we'll take P16, our second best result of the season.
Good race,
Still a net
well
gain.
done. I'll see you back at the garage.
Thank you, Andy. Still a net gain there. 3 places up from our starting position. We finished, though, only ahead of Trulli, D'Ambrosio, Glock and Carter Kayan, who all finished. But as you'll see there, Hamilton, DNF, De Resta, DNF, Liuzzi, DNF, Sebastian Vettel, DNF. And Alonso took the victory ahead of Mark Webber, Jensen Button in 3rd, then it was Petrov in 4th in the end. So something happened to Massa. Then Schumacher, Kobayashi, Heidfeld, Rosberg, Perez, Buemi there in 10th. Maldonado, Alguersuari, Sutil. There's Massa, DNF'd, but because he'd lapped all the way up to Barrichello. He finishes 14th, or he's classified in 14th, just ahead of us. So if we'd held on to the lead lap, which I don't think we would have, we definitely wouldn't have, coming out of the pits when we did, we would have at least finished 15th and matched our best result of the season. But what does that do for the championship? We remain 19th with 0 points, but Trulli jumps the Virgin Racing cars of D'Ambrosio and Glock. Carter jumps Trulli behind us. We stay just with Barrichello, Sutil, De Resta, Maldonado on 0 points. Points for Kobayashi mean he catapults a bit further up the top 10. Rosberg and Buemi stay there as well. Perez nets some points too. At the top, though, Webber leads the way by 9 points. 11 points, sorry, cannot math. 11 points ahead of Fernando Alonso, who's 10 clear of Button. Massa now slips to 4th with that DNF. Vettel down in 5th with Hamilton. Now not so far ahead of Vitaly Petrov. He is 9 points ahead of the Russian. He's got Schumacher just in behind him for company. In the constructors, we remain 10th ahead of Marussia Virgin Racing and HRT, with Williams and Force India still also on 0 points, so we can jump one of the established teams with a single point as it stands. At the top, though, Red Bull, their lead is cut by Ferrari. There is 8 points in it. McLaren a bit further back, with Lotus still cut quite adrift, 10 clear of Mercedes, who jump up to 5th, I think. Sauber stay 6th, with Toro Rosso in 7th. Well, another instance. Sorry, trying to get the words out. Another instance, really, of what could have been. We were running solidly, I guess. We were fighting for that 1 point in the top 10. We made overtakes on pace, not just on incidents or the concertina effect at the start. We were getting passed by Maldonado and Perez, but coming back at them and staying with them for a few corners. This car is slowly improving, but it's still some way off the established guys ahead. Gained some places, I guess, through DNFs, one of which I think De Resta's caused by us, but Hamilton and Vettel dropping out obviously elevated us a couple of positions. But another race pointless. We're 4 rounds into this season, and we're only, I think, and let's see if I can get this correct, I believe at round 4 last season we only had 1 point, and at round 4 this season we have none. So we are still just behind. It wasn't until Turkey in 2010, which was round 7, before we scored our next set of points, and then we went on a nice little run. Sans Britain and Hungary all the way through, and Italy, I guess, all the way through to Singapore, which is when the season kind of collapsed a lot on us. And then we took that sensational victory at Abu Dhabi. This season doesn't feel like it's going to be that, but we are still only 1 point behind our Virgin Racing total from 2010. Spain is next. It's not a circuit I did well at last season. It's not a circuit I do well at to this very day. So I don't expect that we'll pick up anything out of that one. But fingers crossed, we might have some bad weather that will even the playing field out a little bit. Because the lack of curves on this car is, I think, costing us maybe a second a lap, if not more. It's going to be a long, hard slog to the end of this season. That 80 points looks like a massive distance away. But that was Turkey. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Like, share, subscribe, comment, do all the good stuff. You know the drill by now. And I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now.